It started with a rusted nail and a missed package. My name is Chris Dalton, a software engineer by trade and a quiet man by nature. I moved into Sycamore Ridge, a gated suburban enclave where beige stucco homes line manicured streets, hoping for peace, quiet, and dependable Amazon deliveries. Instead, I found myself in the crosshairs of a tyrant wrapped in pearls, Karen Whitmore. Karen is the president of our Homeowners Association, and if you believe her, also its spiritual shepherd. Mid-50s, always dressed like she's hosting a daytime talk show, and forever clutching a clipboard, Karen patrols Sycamore Ridge like a mall cop with a vendetta. Her power is self-appointed but absolute, and she rules with a twisted devotion to the HOA rulebook, one she helped write. My first run-in with her was over a wreath. Not some gaudy neon display, just a simple autumn wreath. Seasonal decor may not be displayed more than 2 weeks before or after the corresponding holiday, she'd said, tapping her clipboard like a judge sentencing a felon. I took it down, not because I agreed, but because it wasn't worth the fight. But the gate code incident? That was different. That was war. It happened on a Tuesday morning. I was expecting a delivery, a replacement hinge for a backyard gate. Ironically enough, the driver texted me from outside the community entrance. "Hey, someone let me in, but then a lady stopped me and took my picture. Said she needed proof of the package." Alarm bells went off. I pulled up the footage from my home security system, which includes a camera pointed toward the neighborhood's main gate. There she was, Karen, stepping into the driver's path like an overly dramatic traffic cop. She waved him down, interrogated him, and without hesitation, recited my personal gate code. 1932. She didn't even look over her shoulder. That code wasn't just for delivery convenience. It was synced with my smart home security. Cameras, door locks, even my garage. I'd given it to no one except immediate family and a trusted neighbor. Karen handing it out like a coupon flyer wasn't just a breach of etiquette. It was a violation of trust, privacy, and basic human decency. The next HOA meeting couldn't come fast enough. Held in the clubhouse, an over-perfumed room with folding chairs and stale coffee, the meeting had its usual suspects, Mr. Blanchard from Lot 14, who always fell asleep by the third agenda item. The Feldmans, perpetually feuding with the Whitmores over lawn edge encroachments. And then front and center sat Karen. Pearl necklace, tight smile, gavel in hand. When it was time for resident concerns, I stood. "I'd like to address something serious," I began, measured but loud enough to halt the side chatter. "Karen, you gave out my gate code without my consent." She didn't blink. "Christopher, the driver was lost and delaying traffic. I simply offered a solution in the interest of keeping the community moving." "It wasn't your solution to offer. That code protects my home." Karen leaned back, her expression that of a smug cat. "If you didn't want it shared, perhaps you shouldn't have made it so pedestrian." 1932? Really? A ripple of laughter moved through the room. My fists clenched at my sides. "This isn't a joke. It's a security breach." Karen shrugged, dismissing me like a child whining over spilled juice. "Let's move on, shall we?" I sat down, humiliated and enraged. She didn't just ignore the complaint. She turned it into a punchline. And nobody held her accountable. That night, I changed my gate code, rekeyed my locks, and reset every digital access point connected to my smart system. But a deeper damage had already been done. A principle had been violated, one that no lock could fix. Over the next few weeks, the impact of her arrogance became visible. New cars lingered near the entrance longer than usual, some without resident decals. Teenagers parked by the man-made lake past curfew, smoking and laughing loudly. A porch pirate made off with a neighbor's package, a rare occurrence in our usually buttoned-up enclave. I talked to residents. Many noticed the same uptick in irregularities. But when I suggested it might trace back to a compromised gate code, they hesitated. "I'm sure Karen had her reasons," one said. "She means well," offered another. Karen's image as the benevolent matriarch of Sycamore Ridge was ironclad. To most, she was just strict. To me, she was a saboteur hiding behind a pearl necklace. So I did something that I admit, in hindsight, was childish. But at the time it felt justified. It felt right. I changed the gate code again. This time, to her phone number. It was an act of precision pettiness. Karen's number was public. It was plastered on HOA emails, printed on the back of neighborhood newsletters, and featured prominently on the community website. I updated the entry panel at the gate with a little flair. When visitors pressed the info button, the automated voice now said, "Welcome to Sycamore Ridge. For entry, please contact our HOA president, Karen Whitmore, at phone number redacted." The first call came at 6:47 a.m. A jogger who forgot his key fob. By noon, I counted 11 more. Contractors visiting relatives, a pizza delivery guy. All calling Karen. All expecting her to grant them access.
My phone stayed silent.
At 3:12 p.m., she showed up at my door. "Christopher." I opened the door with just enough crack to appear cordial. "Karen." Her face was flushed, her lipstick slightly smudged. She held up her phone, vibrating like a beehive. "You changed the gate code to my personal number." "You gave out mine," I said evenly. "This just seemed easier for everyone." "This is harassment." "No, this is clarity. Now people know exactly who to talk to about community access." She stormed off, leaving a whiff of expensive perfume and fury in her wake. That evening, the neighborhood buzzed. Not everyone knew it was me.
Some assumed it was a prank.
Others suspected Karen did it herself, part of some convoluted publicity stunt. I watched from my front porch, a silent observer with a cup of coffee and a satisfied grin. For the first time, Karen wasn't in control. She was the gatekeeper now, in every sense. It didn't take long for Karen's phone to become the most unpopular number in the county. By the end of that week, she'd received over 100 calls, neighbors needing access, delivery drivers demanding directions, and strangers just confused. She couldn't walk her dog without someone asking, "Hey, are you the gate lady?" The irony was too rich. The woman who once demanded control over every mailbox, lawn, and light fixture was now the de facto concierge for the entire community. But she wasn't going to take it lying down. 3 days after the phone fiasco began, I received a formal violation notice taped to my front door. Improper placement of ornamental birdbath. Remove within 48 hours. The birdbath had been there for years, past the last 2 inspections without issue. I left it where it was. The next day, another notice. Trash bins visible from the street outside of designated hours. My bins were behind a privacy fence. Then came the kicker, a $200 fine for public harassment through technological manipulation. The accusation was baseless. It wasn't in the bylaws, nor was it ever discussed. But I knew who was behind it. Karen had declared war. Rather than retreat, I rallied. I began canvassing the neighborhood, not with petitions or signs, but with stories. At first, it was subtle. Casual conversations about Karen's overreach. A mention here, a memory there. I discovered I wasn't alone. Linda Feldman from Birch Hollow had been fined for unsanctioned decorative gnomes. Steve Tran, a father of 2, had his son's skateboard ramp dismantled by HOA order. Even sweet old Mr. Blanchard, who barely stayed awake through meetings, had once been written up for non-regulation shutters. There were stories. Too many to ignore. A resistance began to form, not loud, but steady. A drip of discontent that soon became a stream. We met quietly, in backyards and garages. We discussed alternatives, reviewed bylaws, shared tactics. And then I suggested the unthinkable, running for the HOA board. Karen had ruled unopposed for 7 years. Elections were ceremonial at best. No one wanted the headache.
But now?
People were tired. They were ready. Linda agreed to run for treasurer. Steve volunteered as secretary. I stepped up as the challenger for HOA president. We named ourselves the Homeowner Fairness Committee. Our platform was simple: transparency, accountability, and sanity. No more fines for minor infractions. No more dictating flower colors or banning doormats. We believed the HOA should serve the residents, not police them. Karen, sensing a shift, went on the offensive. She accused me of hacking the gate system, claimed Linda was a spiritualist who hosted seances in her basement, alleged Steve was operating an illegal fireworks ring. The rumors were ridiculous, but relentless. Karen began flooding the neighborhood with letters. "Protect our values," they read in all caps. "Don't let radicals destroy Sycamore Ridge." She doubled down on enforcement. More fines. More violations. People began documenting everything. Cameras went up. Conversations were recorded. At one point, I received a notice for excessive enthusiasm during public events. Still, we pushed forward. We organized a community barbecue at the park, everything within code. We handed out brochures and offered to pay minor fines for residents willing to share their stories publicly. Support grew. Karen, once untouchable, now seemed brittle. Her speeches lost polish. Her supporters grew quiet. Then came her most desperate move yet, an emergency resolution to delay the HOA election due to instability and threats to board safety. The moment I read it, I knew she was scared. And that only made me more determined. Karen underestimated one crucial truth. People will tolerate rules, but not tyranny dressed in beige. The emergency resolution didn't stick. Linda uncovered a clause in the HOA charter that required a 2/3 resident majority for election delays. We had 68%, just enough. The vote was legally mandated.
Karen balked.
She sent out one last letter dripping with faux concern. "In light of current hostilities," she wrote, "I will reluctantly participate in the coming election." Reluctant, sure. The clubhouse was standing room only the day of the vote. For once, even Mr. Blanchard was wide awake. I spotted Linda near the coffee urns, clutching her speech notes. Steve stood by the door, offering ballots and handshakes. Karen arrived 10 minutes late, flanked by her remaining loyalists. She wore an eggshell pantsuit, her hair more lacquered than usual, her clipboard upgraded to an iPad. She gave a speech, long, grandiose, and defensive. She invoked tradition, civic order, and the dangers of digital manipulation. I followed with mine. Shorter, sharper, direct. "We've had 7 years of top-down mandates. Let's try transparency, kindness, and common sense." The ballots were cast. The tension hung thick. An hour later, the results came in. I won. By 12 votes. Linda and Steve were also elected. The room erupted in restrained celebration. Karen stood still for a long moment, then exited through the side door without a word. It wasn't over. Not yet. The HOA office was in disarray. Records were inconsistently filed. Some fines seemed fabricated. Others were double-charged. Karen had run the HOA like a personal fiefdom. Undoing it wouldn't be fast or easy. But we started. We issued a freeze on all outstanding fines pending review. We opened a digital portal for grievances. We held open forums, listened more than we spoke. A week into our term, Karen sent a formal email. Effective immediately, I resign from all HOA-related committees. No signature.
Just that line.
I read it twice, smiled, and closed the tab. Sycamore Ridge had new gatekeepers now. The quiet after Karen's resignation was unsettling at first. For years, Sycamore Ridge had moved to the beat of her clipboard. With her gone, the neighborhood didn't exactly exhale. It looked around, stunned, unsure of what came next. Some expected me to run the HOA like Karen, just with a different flavor of control. But I had no interest in becoming a new tyrant. The first board meeting under our leadership reflected that. We replaced the long table Karen always sat at alone with a circle of chairs. The agenda was emailed a week in advance, and every item had time limits and community input slots. People came expecting a lecture. What they got was a conversation. Linda handled the financial review with grace, highlighting years of unnecessary expenditures, from premium paper for violation notices to boutique landscaping contracts held by Karen's nephew. Steve broke down a proposal to digitize HOA forms and allow electronic voting, something Karen always said was too risky. We didn't make sweeping changes overnight. That would have triggered more fear than progress. Instead, we started small. We repealed nuisance-level fines, lawn height infractions under 3 inches, minor decor violations, garage door hue inconsistencies. We revised the guest parking policy to accommodate extended family visits. We encouraged the formation of volunteer-led committees, social events, landscaping reviews, and yes, even a security committee that didn't involve stalking delivery drivers. The first win came 2 weeks later. A single mom named Jasmine had received 3 fines under Karen's regime for her son's basketball hoop, for her recycling bin being unsightly, and for hosting a birthday party that exceeded noise expectations. All 3 were reversed. She cried in the clubhouse, and not from frustration this time. That moment felt better than the election win. Still, some remained skeptical. Mrs. Deal from Oakview wouldn't remove her window and no new rules sign. The Bakers insisted that Karen had her reasons. But slowly, even the holdouts began to soften. We launched Ask Anything Saturdays, a simple open session at the park gazebo where residents could come voice concerns, offer ideas, or just vent. The first one drew 10 people. The next week, 35. A month in, we had to bring extra chairs. There was laughter again at board meetings. People clapped when policies passed. A neighborhood once smothered by pettiness began to breathe. Karen, however, wasn't gone. Not really. I'd see her from time to time, walking her dog, sunglasses on even at dusk. She never waved, never spoke, but I knew she watched. Then one rainy afternoon she emailed me. Subject line: request for privacy. The message was short. Christopher, I've been receiving prank calls. Some residents still think my number is the gate code. I ask, respectfully, that you make a formal announcement clarifying that it is not. Karen Whitmore. I reread it 3 times. It wasn't an apology. It was a plea disguised as formality. But for once, it wasn't laced with veiled threats. I thought about ignoring it, about letting her stew a little longer in the mess she'd stirred. But that wouldn't serve anyone. The next day, I issued a community-wide notice. Effective immediately, please use your personalized app credentials or the updated entry kiosk code to access Sycamore Ridge. Any prior public numbers, including former contact references, are no longer valid. No names. No blame. Just closure. Karen never replied. By spring, Sycamore Ridge had transformed. Not just administratively, but in spirit. Neighbors helped one another repaint fences. Kids hosted lemonade stands without fear of citation. The book club resumed after a 2-year pause. Even the community bulletin board, once policed for unauthorized announcements, now overflowed with art classes, pet-sitting services, and bake sales. One Saturday, as I trimmed the hedges in front of my house, I noticed something unexpected. Karen, walking slowly, without her usual stiff posture, pausing near my lawn.
We made eye contact.
For a second, I braced myself for another battle. But she simply nodded. A small, tired nod. And walked on. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was something. A truce, perhaps. The kind-born nod of agreement, but exhaustion. That evening, I sat on my porch, sipping iced tea as dusk settled over Sycamore Ridge. The gate lights flickered on. A delivery van passed through. No drama, no delays. Children biked past without fear of HOA reprimand. Somewhere down the road, wind chimes sang. And I thought about how all of this transformation, this healing, had begun with a single code. A simple number. 4 digits. Given away. Then weaponized. And finally, replaced by something better. Trust. In systems. In each other. Even maybe in those who once betrayed it. The story of Karen Whitmore, of my petty revenge, and of a neighborhood reborn wouldn't make headlines. But it mattered, because it proved something quietly radical. Sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It's living better,